What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Fuji X-T3 versus the Sony A7 III. The last video that I posted, them going head to head, was really half-assed, and I really didn't show you guys how I use these cameras and really show you some of the things that you guys should be looking out for when deciding which body system to choose. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about some of the positives regarding the Fuji and my experience being able to shoot with this camera for this shoot. Some of the positives is definitely the color. Having that color science that Fuji is known for is amazing. It's really up head to head with Canon. I don't see the difference between them when they're lined up. However, Fuji does have a lot of film simulations where it's an advantage as well, depending what kind of look you want to go for. Additionally, the screen, the pop-out screen, is very, very useful. I was surprised to actually be using it a lot for myself when I was doing these shoots. Usually when you're in a backlit situation, you're just able to pop off that screen and just really be able to capture the image, or when you're going down low, you don't have to bend down as much. I'm 6'3", and so I'm pretty tall, and having to go down can become a hassle when you have to do it often. And it's pretty hot here in Florida. You'll see in this shoot that I'm sweating a lot. Another positive I have to say is the ergonomics of the camera when it comes to the dials and buttons and the scroll wheels in the front of the camera. It's so convenient to be able to change your ISO, shutter speed, and your aperture on a dime. I find that so much easier to do on the Fuji compared to the Sony. I really love how Fuji has that. And additionally, their menu system is very easy to figure out. I started out with Sony, and when I went into Fuji, I quickly was able to find everything. It was laid out. It just made it so much easier to be able to adjust my settings to my liking, and also be able to create a quick menu, and so I can quickly change things on the fly. If you're a beginner and you're getting to Fuji and have your thoughts about that, I think that would be a great option for you to look into. You won't be so overwhelmed like Sony's menu system is. Even though Sony has gotten better, especially now that they created a quick menu, makes it easier, but still not there just yet compared to the Fuji. I think they have that down packed. Probably one of the greatest things I find with the Fuji system is that they have a lot of great lens options. The XF mount has been around for quite a while. They have a lot of third-party lenses at great prices that you were able to pick up, and I feel that their lenses are really sharp compared to the Sony, where they're quite expensive, especially from Sony or Zeiss or G Master series. But third parties like Tamron and Sigma are definitely creating a little bit more options at a friendlier budget that you're able to pick up great lenses as well. Now, some of the negatives with the Fuji X-T3 has to be with its continuous autofocus when shooting portraits. Quickly noticed that the autofocus was searching for, will get on her face and then lock on her eye, but then all of a sudden go into her hand. And maybe that could be the continuous mode that I left it in instead of single shot mode, and it could have improved it. But since I didn't change it, I noticed that it was hunting, and I didn't like that guessing game as much. And so I quickly just went into manual mode and just went from there, but I still did switch back to continuous, and I still noticed it was still doing the same thing. I'm not sure that's can be solved with an update, hopefully, with Fuji in continuous mode, or maybe I should just stick on a single shot mode, and then it would fix that problem for me. Now, I do want to say for continuous mode for videography, it's excellent and amazing, and that's why I picked up the Fuji. Besides the color and 4K 60, 10-bit and all that good stuff, Fuji is my main videography camera. Now, I am recording this video with my other Sony A7 III with a 24mm 1.4. So just keep in mind that I started out with Sony first, and then I've got into the Fuji realm. Now, here's a big downfall that I've noticed so far with the Fuji X-T3, and it's not really on Fuji, but it's more on Adobe. Workflow is slowed down dramatically. Adobe definitely needs to update with Fuji and add a lot more of the lenses and the X-T3 and all that good stuff, because right now it's slowing my work down whenever I decide to use the Fuji and to take pictures with. Their file size is at 54 megabytes. I used to have the Sony A7R2, and those files were 89, and my laptop is a Dell XPS 15 and has a dedicated graphics card. It's very strong, and it handled the A7R2 with those file sizes at 89 megabytes. And I'm not understanding why it's not handling these 54 megabyte file sizes. Adobe definitely needs to get up to date to that. I still can't even do the lens profile correction on Adobe because the lenses are not there yet. So hopefully Adobe will update that with their new camera raw updates. Now, the Sony A7 III, its file sizes are 47 megabytes, and so it's still pretty large uncompressed for both. However, it's not that difference when it comes to single image comparison. Over time, when you take a lot of images, you'll see that your storage will rack up pretty fast with the Fuji compared to the Sony. Probably the biggest downfall that all of you guys know is battery life. Fuji X-T3 has a small battery, so it doesn't last all long. Maybe in a full shoot environment, it'll probably last around 3 hours, depending how much I'm using the camera, compared to the Sony A7 III, where one battery will last me a whole wedding, both for filming and for photography. So just keep that in mind. However, one of the ways you can solve that issue with the Fuji X-T3 is that you can pick up their battery grip, which is pretty pricey at $329 at B&H. However, if you want to get that solved and not keep changing batteries, then that's one thing that you can go ahead and do. I myself have not picked that up yet, only for the simple fact that I'm pretty cheap. I don't have a problem just putting another battery in really quick. However, I am taking a trip down to Indiana, and since I'm flying with this camera, and it's my main video camera, I am actually renting the battery grip, and I'm going to test it out then and see how I like it and see if that's something that I would recommend for you guys to definitely purchase. If you guys just want to save money, you can always rent it. Now for the Sony A7 III, some of the positives that I love about it was the autofocus. I always leave it in continuous, and it's always able to find the eye really fast, especially with the recent update that they did. Sony is top notch with autofocus. Can't complain. It just makes my shooting experience so much easier and enjoyable because of that. And I actually paired the Sony A7 III with a 50mm 1.8 full frame edition, and so that lens is known to be like really bad for autofocus, and yet it still did better than the Fuji X-T3. That's kind of one of the reasons why I was like, wow, like that lens, I used to get headaches using that lens because it's not great for autofocus. However, paired with the Sony A7 III and its internal autofocus, it's pretty amazing. And so I use that lens. I got some great images with that and be able to share with you. So definitely hands down autofocus is to Sony. Probably one of the biggest reasons why I enjoy shooting with Sony is, besides it being full frame, is that I can go into crop mode. So if I'm using a prime lens, I'm able to get an extra extension by quickly going to crop mode and being able to get a different look and different feel. Since I'm going to crop mode, I can get a little bit more focal length out of my lenses. And so that allows me to save more money because I don't have to buy an 85 or a 105 or whatnot. So, and if you're using a zoom lens like a Tamron 28mm to 75 and you go in crop mode, you can extend it and become more like a 50 to 100 and something or whatnot. You guys do the math. For myself, being a big guy, the grip, gripping something is very important. Sony wins in this category since it has a bigger battery. The grip is bigger compared to the Fuji X-T3. It's not as big. However, with that battery grip, it could make a difference, and I'm going to find out soon and let you guys know. One of the biggest drawbacks that I gave to Fuji was mainly because of Adobe. So my workflow with the Sony A7 III is extremely fast. I'm able to knock out images and edit them extremely fast. So I have to give my workflow point over to Sony because I'm able to get my work done efficiently. Fuji still wins in this category, but now that third parties like Tamron and Sigma are creating more lenses for the Sony E-mount system, we're able to get a lot better lenses and hopefully at a cheaper price compared to what the G Master series and Zeiss and what Sony's producing. So just keep that in mind, that Sony is getting better lens selections now that's been out in the market for a while with the E-mount system. Now here are some of the negatives regarding the Sony. The Sony right now, the colors are almost there. The color science has gotten a lot better, but still not there yet compared to the Fuji. I feel like the Sony has a more magenta colors or throws out more compared to the Fuji. Editing both, it's not a big hassle for me because I enjoy color grading. I manipulate the hues, the colors, skin tones, the skies and whatnot. And so for me, it's not a big deal, but for people who like to shoot and do minimal edits, it can be a big deal. And so if you're doing minimal edits to your photos, then Fuji are probably better because the colors are just better natural. For me, I really can care less because I just change everything in post, so just keep that in mind. Here's my overall thought and opinion on both of these cameras. I'll still use the Sony A7 III for paid work. Why would I use the Sony? Well, my workflow is extremely fast and efficient, so when I'm charging a client X amount of money and I'm able to knock it out fast, the more money I'm actually really making. And if it's taking me longer to edit with the Fuji right now because of Adobe, then I can't use it because then I'm making less money. So right now, Sony would definitely be my preferred camera when it comes to that's paid for. Now, the Sony also has something very valuable to me that I love, which is the crop mode. Being able to go from crop mode to full frame mode on the dime is something that I really enjoy and love. I find myself using that a lot. It allows me to get different looks. The extra focal length is helpful, and just for weddings and whatnot, it just allows me to get two different looks for video and for photography. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons, besides the battery life as well, that I'll stick to Fuji for that type of work. So when it came to the overall edits for both of these shoots with the Fuji and with the Sony, I prefer the Fuji edits. I actually like how the skin tones look better. I try to match them as much as possible because I was using the same preset, but I did have to adjust the hue on the oranges for the skin tones. But I found myself liking more of the edits on the Fuji a lot more than I did on the Sony. Highlights did react differently. The time of day that I did shoot was raining and then it changed and clouds moved. So, you know, Florida is just crazy. I gotta tell you, 1 hour it's great and the next hour it's awful. And so that's why you don't see a lot of details in the highlights or in the sky with the Fuji, because it's just blown out and covered with clouds. Now, Fuji is amazing. I love this camera, I love shooting with it. But for paid work client as of now, I have to stick with the Sony. If the updates with Adobe Camera Raw is done, I would definitely consider changing into the Fuji ecosystem for photography work. Now, I got to say that our model, Flavia, she's actually a wedding photographer herself, and she preferred the Fuji images as well. She actually shoots Nikon, and but she really loved how sharp and the image qualities were from the Fuji compared to the Sony. I found image quality to be the same, but she preferred the Fuji more over the Sony. So guys, I really just base these cameras based on how I would use them for the type of work that I do, type of settings, and type of things that I feel are useful when shooting wedding photography or just portrait photography in general. So at the end of the day, it's up to you guys which one you prefer using. If you guys like the styles of my photos, go ahead and go down below. You can get the preset and you guys can match it. I did make one just for Fuji and also for Sony because colors and hues and whatnot act a little bit differently, but I try to match them as much as possible. So if you like those, you can go ahead and get them down below in the link. Hey, if you want to follow us as well, follow us on Instagram. The link is down below. We're trying to grow the audience more and kind of interact. I'll be able to post things a lot more frequently there than I will on YouTube. However, if you use my presets, please tag me because I love to see how you guys will use them or manipulate them or change it. It's always exciting to see what other creators are doing. But if you like this video and found it useful, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and we'd like to see you in the future. But other than that, peace and enjoy the images to come.